Who?
Maybe a little Brodric Martin. You know,
Hey, what a transition. What a transition. Great transition, brother. Hey,
maybe,
how about that?
Maybe you could feed him in the post a little bit. You know what I mean? Look at the big fella.
Propaganda I'm about to be sold.
Joe Chat.
That's last year's, Jeff.
Yes.
Wait, is that this year or last year?
No, this is this year. This is last year.
Okay.
See, this is workouts, May 6, 2024. Look who's in the back. Take notes.
Klotz, you remember what I said yesterday?
I'm hearing you.
Do you want to repeat it?
Look at the big fella. He's working.
He's working.
He's
got 2 6-round picks coming to take his fucking job.
Hey, look at. Let's not be weird here. Look at the frame. Go over. Look at the frame there. That man. I mean, look at that. That shirt's baggy on him now. Look at that.
Right. Like it's the same fit. He probably lost a little weight. That's great, and I'm excited to see that he's slimming down because that's what he needed to do. Hopefully, this falls perfectly in the 3-year development plan. But we talked about it yesterday, and that's why I asked the question. If you ask, who do I see, even though I haven't seen Mekhi Wingo take a snap, who do I see having more success in the NFL, even after this year for Brodric? I still think it's Mekhi Wingo. I think Brodric, great idea. Hopefully still works out, but I just don't have the faith in it. But I will say the fact that he's taking it serious to lose some weight so he can get some speed on and some agility, that will help him. So I'm happy to see this. I just don't think it shakes any narrative that was there before on my end.
Thank you.
I believe so too. You still gotta see it progress on the field and whatnot. And obviously, he's not going to be a starter or anything. But those chances that he does get and those reps he does get, you just hope he takes a step forward and at least makes an impact out there. But it is good to see him, obviously getting in shape, seems focused and whatnot. So
this is the thing, fellas, and he's in best case scenario right now because last year you had no DJ Reader, you had Isaiah Buggs who was in and out because of probably. I don't know if it was his weight or whatever was going on off the field. And then it was like, oh, Brodric, we need you to step up. Benito, we need someone help. And Brodric had to go in some games. It was the same thing with the Colby Sorsdale thing, to where you never wanted Colby Sorsdale to touch foot on the football field, on the field at all this year. But guess what? There was injuries, and you had to have him step foot on it, and he had to go play. And you see why, like, hey, he was not even close to being ready. Like, this was supposed to be a project for a year or two, and he's not ready yet. So, and you saw that. And it's the same thing to me with Brodric is he had to get thrown out in the fire because we needed people. We needed bodies. Wasn't the best. Didn't get a ton of playing time. Now he knows, and he's been developed. Now this second year's coming in. Best case scenario for the man is DJ Reader or Lee McNeil in front of him. And now Mekhi Wingo is going to be there by his side, and they're going to be able to rotate. And he's going to have opportunities to where he doesn't have all that pressure on him that he has to go out there and he just go out there and just be you. Just go be Brodric Martin. Go be Brodric Martin. Do it. Be you. Be comfortable. What did Kevin Hart keep saying during the Tom Brady roast? Make uncomfortable things comfortable.
Yep. Start being comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's what
that's what's gonna happen for him.
Here's the thing with me. All right. And I said this yesterday. And I want to revisit it because we got Mike back. And now I got some time to think about it. The whole Brodric thing, like if you don't see Brodric that often this year, is it a concern? I'll just ask. No, I'll ask you guys and I'll ask the chat. If you don't see much of him, are you concerned? At what point do you kind of hit the panic button a little bit in terms of, is he a bust? Like, I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm not insinuating. I'm just asking a question. What do you got? How do you guys feel about that?
I would say the second, if Mingo starts over him, or I shouldn't even say starts, but if he gets snaps over him, then, and it doesn't even concern me for the direction where this team is going. Just for him personally, I think at that point, it's like, okay, it's clearly they just signed DJ Reader for 2 years. They're ideally trying to bring Aleem back. So there's the next starters for the 2 years. Got Josh Pascal, who can work on the inside as well. And Mingo, once Reader leaves, if he produces, I'm sure that's who they're going to slot in there. So his window's getting close, and I think they're just going to keep adding depth and adding talent to this defensive line room. And it's okay that it's a miss. Like, that's what Brad's going to miss eventually. And I think this is just one of those players that it's going to be. Can I be wrong? Absolutely. But the fact that it's a third-round pick, I know it's a development, but you didn't see anything. So if
Well, that's
Wingo
because
starts,
it was a development. You were never going to see anything year one.
I understand that,
You
but
never
we're talking
were.
about Benito Jones. We're talking about signing Tyson
Klotz,
Alualu.
even with the worst
street,
on the
man.
team, we knew that. Like, you can't take that into account
I
because you knew no matter who you had in the room, you were never going to see him.
My part is if you're taking him in the third round, I think you should trust him enough to go get Sutton, to not have to put Tyson Alualu, who was 35 years old, hadn't taken a snap. Benito Jones was starting at some point. I just thought you would at least see Brodric out there for a couple plays. And the fact that you're now putting somebody in a position that could get in front of that development plan. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm panicked for the team, but for Brodric to meet what the Lions want him to do, I just don't think there's that in the window anymore.
There's situations in sports, whether it's the NBA, MLB, whatever it is, when you draft someone for a development, just because you have like these vets in there that aren't great or whatever. If you have a guy for development, he's for you need to let him develop. You can't just throw him in the fire when you know he's not ready. You're setting him up for an absolute failure to not do anything, and then he loses all of his confidence. His career's done. He doesn't think he can do anything, and then at the end of year one, you have a guy that you're sitting there trying to fix now. When you could say, hey, let's not put him out in the fire instantly like this. Let the Alualu go. Let Levi go. Let Benito Jones go. Let Isaiah Buggs go in there. Let these guys go in there who have been in the NFL. They might not be great, but let them go out there and take these snaps and let they knew Brodric was never going to be in the rotation this year. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, we didn't see anything out of him. You never were going to. That was not why they drafted him for year one. It was for year 2, year 3, and year 4, year 5 down the line. This is a guy he played at a smaller school. He was never going to come in the NFL and be a dog right away.
So
he needed to develop.
You can be sold that, but then they said the same thing about Colby Sorsdale, who went to an even smaller school and started on a primetime football game with injuries.
Again,
and I'm not saying
and injuries, that was all they had. That was all they had. He got thrown in the fire and shouldn't have.
But my point is, they're seeing what they have. I think they were more comfortable with starting Colby, who was a 5th-round pick out of William and Mary, who they knew was not going to work out, than they were throwing Brodric Martin on the defensive line for meaningful snaps. That's why I'm saying, from what I'm looking at in my perspective,
I think we lost him.
I do not think that there's much room for Brodric Martin to make a dent in this defensive line room. I just don't think it's possible.
No, and to be honest, I agree with Lucas. I'm not panicking overall, as far as our team's future goes. But if Wingo's out there taking his rotational snaps, and in year 2, if he's not even ready for rotational snaps, that kind of makes me not panic a little bit, but it makes me worried about his future. I think right now you should still see him rotating in and getting some snaps when Reeder and Aleem need some breaks. And if he's not even doing that, and you're sliding in Wingo every single time, then I might start to panic a little bit. But
I just think it's guys, it's like the Colby thing. You had no one else, and you had Colby. You're like, we need someone, and you're sitting there with the number 1 offensive line in the NFL. Okay, maybe Colby can hold his own here. And instantly, a game into it, they were like, "Yep, nope, guy's not even close to being ready. Need to sit him and let him develop." And he never went back in.
That's not true. He played in multiple games.
Dude, it was when they found out he wasn't good enough, he did not just keep going back in. He didn't play all year.
But he played. They didn't go inside.
They started putting what's his name in. They started putting playing Yodi. Yodi started playing because they were like, Colby's not even close.
Yes, Yodi was not much better either, and I would say that Yodi does not have Brodric Martin value
For you to say that we haven't seen anything out of Brodric, it's a problem, when it was very clear he was a development piece. Yes, it was a 3rd-round pick. I understand that, but Brad Holmes made it very clear. This is a guy from a small school. He's a development piece. We need to give him time. Like Iffy, and I know Iffy had injuries, but till year 3, we didn't see anything out of Iffy, and now we got to see it. Brodric, it's just, we need to sit there and you can't just 1 year, people are writing him off because, you didn't see him at all last year. Okay, who cares? That was a development piece. Brad came out in a press conference and said it, that, hey, this is a development. It's like, hey, do you trust Brad? I feel like, I could be wrong. I could be crazy. I feel like Brad knows a little bit of what he's talking about when he says, yes, I know it's crazy I drafted him 3rd overall, but he's a development piece. He's not going to touch the field this year, but he's going to learn behind the best in the game with Lee McNeil and DJ Reeder now. Like that, and Terrell Williams.
You don't think the fact that they brought in Reeder and Wingo affects his development at all?
We wanted them to bring in more guys on the D-line. They did that. It's going to help him get better. It's going to elevate.
But for
He's got
him
competition.
To be a 3rd-round pick And you
No,
even said
I don't.
you expect Wingo to start. That's
think
going
Wingo
to hurt his
good.
development because it's going to
No,
keep
it's
him off the field. That's going to take snaps away from him. What are we talking about? Especially if
It's
they're
going to
try
give
to
him
get Levi as
competition.
well.
He's going to get in there. He's playing with the best in the game.
Yes, that's great competition for depth, but when it comes down to it, you have
can't
11
do it
defensive
right
players,
now.
and a lot of times you can only have 1 or 2 defensive tackles unless you're in goal line. That's great, but it's what can you do on the field for us?
Okay,
And it's a
well,
big
guess
mistake.
what?
And
Guess what?
sometimes I just think there's timing wise, but when you add pieces, some players just get passed up. And I can see Brodric, that's just a guy that gets passed up, just like Levi.
Such a wild
Just
statement
like
after not
Levi.
even a year of his first development year. He hasn't even
That's
had a
fine,
chance.
but I'm looking at what they're doing with the
Nuts.
room,
That's
not
such
even
a
just
bad statement.
Brodric.
Such a bad statement. I hate that.
That's fine.
I
That's
hate
fine.
it because guess what? Like
I
DJ Reader's only on a 2-year deal. Aleem has 1 year left. You're hoping that like the thing is with some of these teams, when you have these picks and you have teams built up, you're trying to get guys to get to that level. You're trying to develop guys, whether they touch the field or not. On the back end during the offseason in practice, you're developing guys to try and take over because you need guys in the wings ready to go. Right now, Brodric is that guy. Is just because you haven't seen him doesn't mean he's just trash and he's going to be bad because he hasn't touched the field. He's developing. He's learning. He came from a young school. There's a reason they did take him 3rd overall. They felt like he had talent to do that. Now it's like, okay, how do we translate that to the NFL? It's going to take some time. We need to take a year to do it. We need to take 2 years to do it. Now give the man some time. You're writing him off when he had 1 development year and hasn't touched the field yet. And it was a development year.
Lucas, you're bringing
Sorry
up
for
the
yelling.
concern
Go
level.
ahead. I've tried to explain this multiple times. You can go, Jeff.
Well, Gentry, I want your thoughts, and then I'll
I
try
already
to.
kind of said it. If Wingo's taking rotational snaps, then it worries me a little bit. I'm not worried from the outcome of the team as far as Brodric's development and whatnot. But if he's not even good enough to be a rotational piece this year, then that's when I start to get worried a little bit.
Yeah, Iffy's development really got hurt too because he didn't play for 2 years. Like that really hurt him because we had so many guys in the secondary. That hurt him. Look where he's at.
Hold on.
And I
So
wouldn't
you
go as
can't
far
learn
to
not
say
playing in the
that
game?
he was a bust. Would it be more that it was kind of a reach to trade up for him?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
I
that we
wouldn't-
can
I
do
wouldn't
that,
write him
but
off
just
as a
saying,
bust
writing him off, just saying, oh no, he's done. We didn't see him at all this year. He's a bust. He's done. Write him off.
I
Come
kind
on,
of
that's
put
ridiculous.
Brodric in the same category, even though athletically they are not the same as Giovanni Manu in terms of you're drafting somebody based on potential. And clearly Giovanni's not going to play for probably a year or two. So I get the long-term investment, but to kind of Lucas, I get both sides, but here's my thing on it. If Brad Holmes, he's not going to sit there and just assume that Brodric's going to take the spot or going to just earn the spot. He has to plan for either option. He has to just add in guys, competition. And if he comes out on top, he comes out on top. And if he doesn't, like Lucas said, see you later. Like
Needs the
Mekhi Wingo,
competition in that room.
if he's better, then he takes his spot. Now, DJ Reader, I thought it was interesting. He's only signed for a 2-year deal. So I think that factors into it's a shorter term deal. So you kind of, you allow, hey, maybe Brodric post DJ Reader can take over. But nothing's promised. And I think Brad Holmes' ideology with this whole thing is more competition, more competition. I think this year, if you don't see him at all, my concern level will, especially if there's injuries, knock on wood, but especially if there's injuries and you don't see him at all, I will be more concerned.
I will agree with that. At the
definitely
end of
be
the
more
season,
concerned.
Glotzy, if what happened this last season happens this season upcoming, after he's had an off season again, and this is his second off season with the Lions, he's developed under Terrell Williams and DJ Reader and all these guys, and he's just not touching the field at the end of the year, then we can start having that conversation. But again, I think like going into year 2 of him when we knew he was already a development player and being, oh, why isn't he touching the field? We didn't get, I just think that's where there's the disconnect for me a little bit to where it's, hey, like this was clearly like, it would be like at the end of this year, me going at Jeff and being like, Jeff, why didn't Giovanni Manu play? Huh? I thought like 3rd round guy. Why doesn't he play?
Hurt?
Okay, what if he got hurt and Manu
all?
didn't play? What if he got hurt and Manu didn't play? And then I'll be like, Jeff, and then you would be like,
year 1, but year
exactly,
2, I
it's
probably
the exact
would.
same situation with
year 2, I
Brodric.
would.
Here's my
As we
thing.
were
Booner.
never
I would
expecting
agree
him to play this year.
I would agree with you. I'm with you, but I'm not doubting the developmental thing. My thing is, I just do not see a path for Brodric Martin to be a starting defensive tackle. I just don't. I don't see path for it. Could he become a rotational depth piece on this team, the third, fourth defensive tackle? That's fine. But I don't think you trade up in the third round for those guys, in my opinion. I don't think you do.
Could I argue that post DJ Reader, he's probably the best fit to take that role?
As of right
On
now,
the
on
active
this team,
roster now, definitely. But
Like,
you
in
got to
terms of,
see,
like, a
you're
true
hoping
nose
that's
tackle.
hoping.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, you're banking on his development, which at this point you really don't know. The thing with Colby too, I think, at least in my opinion, Colby and Brodric was much more raw. Like, even though they're both from small schools, I think Brodric, dude, like his pad level was something that they brought up immediately. Like, there's a lot more to work on with him. And after Colby went out there, like, obviously him or Yodi, it both was not great, but also you're playing on the best offensive line in football. So it's like, maybe you can hide him a little bit, but
and
I
don't look
know.
at it as a
That's where
bad
I'm
thing
at.
too. I don't look at it as a bad thing that Wingo got brought in. Like, again, like you said, Jeff, the competition. It's the same
Yeah.
thing in the corner room. When Brad came out after the draft and said in the corner room, we just brought in 4 or 5 corners this offseason now, like brand new guys. We basically just brought a bunch of dudes and drafted 2 in the first 2 rounds. We didn't draft them because we didn't think some of these guys can't play. It's now we have competition in this room. Someone's gonna have to come out of there better and have to, like, you're gonna, like, iron iron. Like, that's dudes are going to come out of that. And it's the same thing with Brodric. Yeah, they brought DJ Reader on. You bring in Mekhi Wingo now. It's not that, hey, it's going to take snaps away from him. No, it's going to potentially help kind of make him that much better. If he is exactly what they thought he was when they drafted him and what he could get to and his ceiling is, you would think that him having competition in there, a better D-line coach and everything that goes with it, you would think that would elevate him up that much more to want to play. Like, if he has that mindset, you'd be like, hey, I'm going there to compete. It's the same thing in the corner room, in the safety room, with these receivers with DPJ and these guys. It's, hey, you're going to, like, we have a good roster. If you want to play and get snaps, you're going to have to work for it. And I think it helps guys get better. That's why it's hard for me. Like at the end of this season, we'll really know what Brodric is at the end of this season or what he potentially could be.
I want to get to the people. By the way, if you got any videos of the tornado or just the storm, send them to our email and I'll play them on here. And then make sure to write your username so I give you credit. I think it'd be cool.
It's a fun conversation. They got the flood flowing a little bit. Boy.
Well, people ask, they want to ask Lukas, and I think Lukas, he can explain on his end here. But a couple people are asking, True Tell 2011, you don't see a path based on what?
I still think I still think they would like to ideally add more talent to the defensive line room. They added 2 this year. I understand that DJ Reader's going to be out of there in 2, but I think they're going to try to bring a lean back and they're going to keep adding talent. I think this is one of those things where Brodric Martin, he could be a good, like I said, depth piece, but I don't think he's going to be able to transition to be a starter. And then if he does that, again, he's going to have to be able to adapt to the game at that level. So there's still going to be growing pains. Would you rather wait on that development or this year? Kenneth Grant sitting there at 18. Let's trade up and get him. There's going to be another Chris Jenkins. There's going to be a Chris Braswell, etc. You get what I'm saying? There's going to be more pro-ready guys, not only this year in the draft. Obviously, it passed. You can go into next year's draft and the next year's draft that are more pro-ready than Brodric. So when you add that, I think Brad's going to be looking at that. Not only that, but they're going to be adding guys in free agency. I just think he's going to get passed up. That doesn't make him an absolute bust of a player, but for what you're expecting out of him, what you've been sold as far as this mammoth of a player that's going to develop into the bookend defensive tackle, I don't think that's what it's going to be, and that's okay. Brad's going to miss, and I think it's a similar in Levi. Like, Levi was a second-round pick, and I think this is just going to be a similar situation to that.
To me, real quick, I just wanted to second that. Klotz, I get to point to that, but kind of to that conversation. Then in the NFL, like, that's what the NFL is, and like the NBA, that's what pro sports are. Is there's always going to be pro-ready guys coming up in the draft and free agency and all that. So it's like at that point, every development guy let's just count every development guy out. There's no path for any development because there's always going to be pro-ready guys. And do you see what I'm saying? Like, we have to give a little bit of a leash. We have to understand that there's going to be development guys and B guys there. Do you know what I mean?
But then there's also development guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a 4th-round pick, and he was able to play right away. There's difference in developments. When you talk about a length of development on a Super Bowl contending team, this isn't a rebuilding team anymore. So in my opinion, you are always trying to add as much ready talent as you can right now. The better win now teams just have talent that is ready to go, not really to develop. They're not banking on development. Name the project on the San Francisco 49ers offensive line, on the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. Mayada, he developed for like half a year, and they started playing him, and he picked it up right now. And so when you try to sell me that with the Brodric Martin thing, I just don't see it. I don't see that. When you talk about quarterbacks, that's completely different because it's way more important to let a quarterback develop. And I just think when you're talking about defensive tackles, replaceable, they're just as replaceable as running backs like we were talking about yesterday, in my opinion. You can go get a veteran guy on a 1-year contract right now, and then go draft a guy in the second round and he can play right now. And I think most of those guys will have more production on the field than Brodric Martin.
Yeah, I guess we're just going to agree to disagree because I like to your point. You're just saying like even if you're a Super Bowl team, like I'm sure the Chiefs have some guys on the back end right now that roster is developed. Like they're developing some guys on the back end that we don't know about, and I think that's like a Brodric. You're
Brodric's
going to have
different.
guys. Yeah, but you're just going to have guys in your building, whether it's 3rd, 4th, 5th round, 6th round that you're developing. Like Giovanni Manu this year, he's not going to touch the field for a while. Like you just have that. Yeah, you're a Super Bowl ready team, but you're just going to have those guys. And yeah, if you take a guy in the 3rd and trade up. Yeah, but I don't think it's like, hey, I don't ever see a path for a guy like this to ever get on the field because he's a development guy. I don't see that. That's just part of the game.
Yeah, and I saw this is where I'm at. And just to close it out here, like Brodric's a very specific example because of how much he has to develop. So that's why I'm not concerned yet. I'm not hitting the panic button, but I think if you'll hear more, the reporters are going to do their job. We'll have John on every Wednesday. He can give us some insight on what Brodric looks like. You'll find out this year. I think this to in terms of his development, not in terms of him playing and keeping the job or anything like that. He could, but I don't think so. I think it's probably you're going to hear more about his development this year, and then I think the following year is make or break for me. 2 years, I think, is enough for any development player. But Lucas, if that's your opinion on it, I don't agree with Brodric's case because he's just different. Like he's so raw. So I'm willing to give him a little more of a leash, but we'll see. I don't know. Brad, like you said, he's not going to hit on every single pick, and I think him drafting guys that need development isn't a bad idea. It's just there's going to be times where not everyone can hit their ceiling, and we'll see if Brodric can do that.
Didn't this year feel like a little bit of a development draft to you guys though? That's essentially what it felt like.
Giovanni Manu, certainly.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And it felt like last year, like with Brodric and Colby, they felt like they were starting to turn towards that way, which you would love to have guys that could play instantly. But you could feel Brad last year with the Colby and Brodric picks. You could feel him kind of, all right, we're gonna take some guys like Terrion Arnold's and Rakestraws that can play right away, but we're also gonna take some developments, and that's what it felt like with a couple of these dudes, and even like a Mahogany who like, hey, we can sit him and let him develop. Your guy Sion Vaki, Klotzy, like he can sit there and he can learn back there and probably get better and better behind Gibbs and Demont. So I just think that they're kind of at that point where you got to like let some of these guys marinate a little bit. Is the word?